Chapter 30. Fluffy. When it came time for Natalia and Buck to get some rest, Natalia noticed she wasn't able to fall asleep while both Buck and Titania slept like a rock, with Buck in the comfy recliner and Titania in bed. She was also hungry and went into Vixie's kitchen to get something to eat. And that's when Natalia noticed that Vixie wasn't sleeping well either, and woke up in the middle of the night. And because Vixie had quite a round face and soft curves on her body, Natalia thought Vixie was chubby, but didn't want to say it out loud. After all, there was an unwritten rule she knew not to ask a woman how much she weighed. And in a culture such as the Kitsune clan, where fat shaming was common, calling someone fat was very insulting. Vixie then asked out of the blue, "Do you think it's time for me to get a fur trim?" Natalia answered awkwardly, I don't know. Do you need one?" Vixie stretched out her arm. "All right. Stick your hand in my floof, and tell me if you think there's too much." Natalia felt weird, as if she were about to touch a blob of fat, when her hand got completely buried in Vixie's fur. But to her surprise, when her hand touched Vixie's skin, Vixie was quite solid. Natalia then asked, "How do you have so much floof?" Vixie sat down on the couch with Natalia while keeping her voice down as not to wake everyone up. "I'm an Arctic fox, where we naturally have thick fur. And I'll take your answer as a sign I need to get a fur trim. Because like the Tanukis say, I'm not fat, I'm fluffy. Say, I don't have to see my boss Inari tomorrow, nor have any work to do, so why don't you, me, Titania, and Dixie have a girls' day out after I get my fur trimmed? I also don't mind if you want to fluff my floof before I cut it off." Titania seemed to enjoy it quite a bit earlier. "Well, you sure are fluffy. It might it must get hot in the summertime with all that floof. But besides that, how are you so comfortable with letting strangers into your house?" Vixie tapped the side of her head with one of her claws. "I have a limited clairvoyance, so I can partially see what's on your mind and in your heart. My boss, Inari, has me use it to screen candidates for high positions of authority after they pass all civil examinations with flying colors, which she has dubbed the Vixie test. And you seem trustworthy, even with the best illusion magic of any Tanuki I've ever seen. I've rarely seen a Tanuki make an impeccable disguise beyond just the visuals without using a leaf. Had you used a leaf, you might have completely fooled me. Also, my mentor, Father Victor, as you know him, knows you quite well, and has talked a lot about you to me. He says you saved his life multiple times and showed yourself to be a very selfless person. So, we're not complete strangers. Plus, I have so much floof I don't turn the heater on at night, and I don't want you to get cold. So I left the heater at a higher temperature tonight and just opened my window while I let my husband snuggle my floof. Which reminds me, I should get back to bed before my husband gets cold. Good night, Natalia." "Good night, Mrs. Reddington. You can just call me Vixie. And if you're having trouble sleeping, I can brush my tails across your head and put a sleeping spell on you so you're well rested in the morning." "All right, Vixie. Please do. Otherwise, I probably won't fall asleep till 3 a.m. Vixie gently brushed her faintly glowing white, violet-tipped, fluffy tails across Natalia's head as she began to become drowsy, and made her way back to bed and entered a deep sleep within seconds. A girl's day out. After everyone woke up, Vixie made everyone breakfast and got on with her girl's day out, while leaving Todd and Buck alone. After all, the two needed a break from the women in their lives every once in a while. And so, Vixie went on to the fur-cut place, and there were lots of rooms for privacy, with both sections for Todds and Vixens. And so Vixie went into the private room and grabbed the shears to start trimming her fur to the desired length. And because Vixie had so much floof, she was in there for a while. Natalia then asked Dixie, "Does she normally take this long?" Dixie answered, "What can I say? The lady's lots of floof." Natalia then continued to sit and wait for Vixie to get done, and hearing the constant buzz of the electric shears in Vixie's room. And then the buzzing sound stopped, as then there was the sound of hot water and the smell of scented soap. And Vixie always paid extra for a hot shower so she could loose the fur wouldn't be so itchy when she put her clothes back on. And then Dixie and Natalia knew that Vixie was almost done when they heard the sound of a full-body blow-dryer dry out her soaked fur. And then Vixie put her clothes back on and stepped out of the cleaning room. And now that her fur was cut short, Vixie's clothes were not super tight against her body anymore and looked like a little big on her. After all, Vixie always wore clothes that were one size too big to account for her immense floof. And her face became much more defined, and with her neck to the point where she looked more majestic and elegant than fat. Vixie then said, "So, are you three ready to have our girls' day out?"
Buck and the boys. Although it would be rude for Todd to say to his wife's face that he appreciated getting away from her from time to time, he didn't mind saying it to Buck and Sozan, whom Buck didn't realize was Sozan Yako, because he thought Yako was dead and this kitsune in front of him was someone else for having a different number of tails. And as was an unwritten rule of Guy Time, Todd knew along with Buck and Yako that what happened at Guy Time stays at Guy Time. And it was bro code not to dig up the past either. But despite it being common for immature vixens, which only became more common after the 1960s with vixens refusing to grow up and hold on to the past and dig it up and use it as a bludgeon over their boyfriend's or spouse's head and refusing to take accountability for their lives, Vixie wasn't one of those kinds of people, and Todd really appreciated that about her. It was also the reason why Finnegan Fennick refused to get a girlfriend, seeing it was more effort than it was worth, as it was so uncommon for vixens of his age range to show adequate levels of maturity and responsibility, even to his own level where he took responsibility for the bad life choices and learned from them. As for Yako, he grabbed all his belongings from Inari's palace and finally retired after 800 years of service. So Todd thought it would be a great idea to have a retirement party for him, and up until that point, Yako had told Buck that his name was Mushy Blacktail, his baptismal name. And Todd kept playing along with it, seeing that Buck was oblivious to the obvious in front of him. And during this time, Buck was getting along quite well with Yako, and almost as someone he could sit down and enjoy a night at a bar with. But with Yako being someone who didn't have many friends, his retirement party was very small, only consisting of Buck, Todd, Yako, and Father Victor, and although Father Victor generally hated the taste of alcohol, he had a drink in Yako's honor with a pina colada, so he couldn't taste the alcohol as much. Unfortunately, Father Victor didn't know he was supposed to play along and said, "To Sozan Yako's retirement." And when Buck heard those words, he dropped his beer and it shattered on the floor, fearing for his only a few feet away from him, Yako in the flesh. Buck then ran as fast as he could, leaving the bar and using the best of Tanuki illusion ability to cover his track as he continually thought, fuck, Sozan Yako's alive. I need to get Natalia and Titania out of here, and fast.
If only I had Finnegan right here and right now, it would be a lot less bad than it is right now.
Buck then frantically tried calling Finnegan about what to do about Yako now that he was in Ninetails. But he wouldn't pick up the phone because Finnegan was blasting Caramel Dancin' at full volume on his 400-watt surround system with a 400-watt subwoofer, shaking the whole room connected to his RGB lighting gaming desktop while playing Space Ninja farming in-game resources, and didn't hear his phone ringing and pissing off the neighbors at 3 a.m. Buck then tried calling Natalia, but her phone was muted while enjoying a pedicure and a spa day with the girls. But Buck left a voice message anyway that said, "Natalia, I need you to listen to me. Yako is alive, and I saw him and literally just shared a beer with him. Todd and Father Victor know about this too, and didn't say anything until now. We have to leave right now." Todd then asked Yako, "Where did he just go?" Yako answered, "I'm sure wherever he went, he ran off trying to get away from me, and I don't blame him. He's a Tanuki after all, and I have a bad reputation there. I'm lucky Bishop Onesimus didn't turn me into the Tanuki authorities when he had the chance." "I understand. Well, I think we should find him before he gets himself into trouble." "Good luck with that. If a Tanuki like him could cover his tracks with illusion ability so good he didn't even need a leaf to do it, there's not a chance we'd find him, even with my Protogen Visor's advanced sensors. Well, I have an idea. He's probably not going anywhere without his fiancée and that fairy girl Titania. So maybe we'll find him at the spa where my wife and his fiancée are spending the day. Then make your way there. I'll make my way towards your house if he went that way to grab his belongings before leaving." Yako then made his way towards Todd's house to find Buck picking the lock to get inside. Yako then asked before Buck could get inside, "Are you sure you wouldn't rather use a key? Because I have one. I'll also help you pack if you want to go somewhere." Buck tried to pull out a concealed blaster pistol to immobilize Yako, but his Tanuki sense was suppressed and Yako was quicker on the draw and summoned a lightning to zap the blaster pistol out of Buck's paw hand. Yako then said, "Listen, I'm not after you. I just want to talk to you and settle this matter peacefully between us." Buck panically tried to find something he could pick up as a weapon, but found nothing. Buck then tried to use his fists in a moment of terror, but Yako was a much better fighter and pinned Buck to the side of Todd's house, without hurting him. Yako then said right in front of Buck's face through his Protogen visor that was toggled to be transparent, "Listen, I'm not going to hurt you. Can you at least take some time to calm down so we can talk?" Buck and Yako remained like this for a couple of minutes before Buck made some observations in a slightly clearer state of mind. He noticed that Yako was carrying around his service sidearm on his hip, and if he really intended to kill him, he could do so with near impunity because of his status as a Tanuki. It's not like the mainstream Kitsune culture treated Tanukis as equal under the law nor in dignity. So, to Buck, Yako just pinning him against Todd's house and making no attempts to cause serious injury nor murder seemed out of place given his terrifying reputation as a Tanuki hunter and killing Saint Moshi the Blacktail. Yako then said, "Are you calm now?" Buck didn't answer. No way he would give Yako something to work with by himself. Not that there was anything he could hide because of Yako's limited clairvoyance. And then Todd returned to his house with his wife and Dixie and Natalia and Titania to see the sight. And then Todd asked, "Yako, is there a reason you have Buck pinned against my wall like that?" Yako answered, "I'm waiting for him to calm down so I can talk to him." "I don't think you pinning him to the wall is helping all that much. Let him go." Yako did as he was asked to do and unpinned Buck as Buck stood there embarrassed with everyone looking at him. Todd then noticed the embarrassment on Buck's face and asked, "I don't want to bother you any further, but I need to know, how come you acted that way you did when you found out Yako was still alive?" Buck answered while feeling betrayed by someone he thought was a good man. "I felt like I had at least some peace because Father Victor and you were here, but when I saw Yako alive with my own eyes, that peace was gone. I know now, without a doubt, that the kitsune that was sent to kill my fiancé in the Celanese Civil War is still out there and didn't die when James Wolfe shot him out of the sky. I felt like I only had seen his ghost or an apparition or hallucination from extreme stress when Finnegan and my other mission partners saw him save our lives from Solara. And I didn't know that was Yako in the flesh until now." Todd faced Yako and asked in a serious tone, "Is it true you were sent to kill Natalia?" Yako answered, "Inari ordered me to do it. But I also had my own reasons. I saw it as avenging my own squad members when she shot down, and killing all the Zolsuran aces I trained in the American Zolsuran War. It's an endless cycle of vengeance and violence, and I fully take the blame for it and intend to end this cycle." "Then I take it you two have a problem with each other, and I'm not going to pretend like I understand how deep this goes. But at the same time, we have better things to do than try to kill each other. After all, Natalia is alive, and I know you both lost people that were close to you. So you two need to work this out before my wife gets Inari involved in all this. And believe me, Buck, you do not want to deal with her if she finds out you're the son of that Yakuza, Don Ringtail, who is a very personal enemy of hers." Buck then protested, "The hell I'd reconcile with a Nojitsune who almost killed my soon-to-be wife. Bring Inari in this. What do I care that I'm related to Don Ringtail now that he's thrown in prison and his whole crime syndicate destroyed? I'm serious about this. You do not want to deal with her. Have you forgotten this isn't your America with a Bill of Rights, a Constitution, and a rule of law, but an absolute monarchy? You will not be given a fair trial if Inari gets a hold of this, especially with Sozin Yako, who was her right paw-hand man, and Natalia almost killing him. So what? I can deal with her just fine. Boy, are you stupid. I guess you'll just have to learn the hard way." Vixie then contacted Inari, and Inari, who was getting her nails and fur done while having a spa day and didn't care at all what Vixie had to say until she heard the name Ringtail, being the crime syndicate that was responsible for even organized crime in her kingdom, as well as being the fiancé of another personal enemy of hers, Natalia Whitetail. So, Inari paid the bill and ended her spa day early and made her way to Vixie's house with a group of Protogen guards that arrested Natalia and Buck on sight after shooting them with a non-lethal blaster pistol. Inari then said to Father Victor, "How did you manage to lure them into my kingdom so I could capture them?" Father Victor answered, "I didn't do anything of the sort. Titania came to see me, and Natalia and Buck are her legal guardians. And Natalia is a close friend of mine who is on vacation." Inari looked at her brother scornfully. "That's so much like you. Now I make this bet with you, given your history at reforming terrible people like Moshi the Blacktail and civilizing inferior beings like Tanukis who couldn't merit civilization on their own. If you can manage to civilize Natalia and Buck and
make them into kitsunes in every way except appearance. All they have to do is contribute something useful to our society and be let free. But if you fail, I'm going to throw them in prison. Your time limit is 1 year. If you complete before then, all the merrier. Now, is our little bet settled? It is. Father Victor then agreed and had it written down for the both of them, with Natalia and Buck feeling extremely betrayed by this. But Father Victor had no intention with doing this bet according to his sister's unjust rules, as he reasoned unjust laws are no laws at all. And Father Victor knew that, with Sozan Yako on his side, even if Natalia and Buck ended up in prison, he could have Sozan break them out and get them safely out of the country. So it wasn't so much a bet as a matter of strategy. Meanwhile, Inari almost forgot to notice Titania and asked, "And who might you be and your association with these savages?" Titania angrily answered Inari, "They're some of the only family I have left. You can't just take them from me like that. They did nothing to you." Inari, amused by this, and said, "Well then, until either my good brother succeeds or fails in our little bet, they will stay with you in my residence. But they will not be allowed to leave the country until this is settled. After all, I am being merciful given their race's history. If you were 1,000 years old and knew the true nature of tanagis as I have, and saw what they were before kitsunes gave them the unmerited gift of civilization, you would understand." But Titania wasn't having any of it and said, "Is this any way to treat them who made sure your brother stayed alive in the Celanese Civil War? Victor would be dead if it wasn't for Buck and Natalia." "I don't think so. My brother would still be alive even if he was by himself. I know him better than you, and I can see you're just trying to grasp on to something to change my mind. But nonetheless, I am not interested in your emotional outbursts like my lazy little sister Zenko when she doesn't get her way." Titania then felt as if an iron fist had burned her very heart as she looked at Inari, who felt to her like the embodiment of a heartless bureaucrat. Just being in her presence compared to the life of freedom she had with Natalia and Buck felt oppressive. And the thing that felt oppressive to Titania was Inari's strict adherence to rules and regulations, and having an attitude to everything needing to have a precise structure and hierarchy, without exceptions, above personal concerns of either herself or other people. But despite how much Titania hated it, from Inari's perspective, these structures and rules and regulations were seen as a necessary good. After all, as far as monarchs go, Inari was above average, because despite her stinginess and love of material prosperity, she didn't hoard it for herself and wanted everyone to be able to enjoy it in an orderly manner, as per the school of thought of the cult of Okami Inari her father was a priest of taught. Most other kings and emperors throughout history would have just hoarded everything for themselves and treat the citizens of their kingdoms as a means to their own personal end. After all, Inari was originally never intended to be the Fox Queen, but more so had it imposed on her when her brother abdicated his right to the throne. Inari then took Titania and her companions to her residence, and had Buck and Natalia locked in a spare room where servants slept. And outside the room were armed protogen guards to ensure that Buck and Natalia didn't escape. And to further ensure they wouldn't escape, there were no leaves or plants allowed in the room, along with constant magic suppression fields. But for detaining cell, it was much nicer than being thrown in prison, with the servants' quarters at Inari's estate being reasonably high class. And after having spent some time with her brother, Inari also started changing some of her ways, and one of those ways was treating her servants better. And over the past few months, every servant quarter was renovated to essentially become as if it were its own house in the palace. They each had their own private bedroom, bathroom, basic kitchen, but left the living areas communal so they would socialize. Inari also made a change to allow servants to customize their own living spaces to a much higher degree of freedom, as was one of Vixie's suggestions. And servants didn't have to pay Inari at all for staying in her palace so long as they worked there. Buck and Natalia then got settled in and were forced to change into wearing the clothing style of Kitsune culture as part of them becoming civilized. Father Victor then came into where Natalia and Buck were staying, with an ankle monitor on their feet, and said, "I'm sorry I had to come to this, but I'm working on a way to get you out of this." Buck angrily asked, "And how do you plan on doing that?" "It's simple, but difficult. I'm going to try to convince my sister to let go of her prejudice against tanukis. Because as far as I see it, there's not a chance you'd be able to learn and practice all the nuances of Kitsune culture in a year." Buck mocked Father Victor's idea. "Like that's ever going to happen." "Don't count this over yet, because there's something you haven't considered. My sister is no longer being influenced by a dark magic artifact known as the Keys of Prosperity, and is an inquirer on the road to becoming a catechumen. That's why she's changed and why she didn't just throw you into prison, or have you tortured for being tanukis. Plus, she knows better than to torture American citizens knowing she'd be staring down the barrel of a gun, given what your country is known for. Which also includes Solstice and the Celanese Empire. And it would be political suicide on an international scale, so will instead make your captivity seem like a 5-star hotel experience, while making it look like she's being hospitable to you to politically protect herself. And when not being influenced by dark magic towards extreme avarice, she's not the kind of person who would betray her kingdom like that, just for some marginal profit, knowing that would kill her profits too, and make her life hell with everyone wanting her head for it. So, hang tight while I put this plan of subverting Inari's bet into action. And your part in this plan is just playing along like you don't know about this. I only agreed to this bet to protect you, knowing I had plenty of contingency measures should anything happen to you while you're in my kingdom." Natalia then said, "Understood. I'll play my part in this theater of fooling Inari, while you do yours. And hun, think before you act around Inari." Buck replied, "Don't worry. I've learned my lesson. And thanks for not really betraying us back there. Not sure how else I would get to live in a palace and tick off another thing on my fantasy list. Even if this palace of someone I now extra do not like." After listening to Buck's voicemail, Finnegan ended his vacation early and made his way to the Kitsune clan for a rescue mission, fearing that Inari might do to them. He then said to himself, "Don't worry, Buck, to Tanya and Natalia. I'm coming for you."